Our story begins with our protagonist named Yanagi, who is placing an order at a vending machine. When he looks to the side, he suddenly notices that there is a giant monster there. Yanagi says that he is going to be late, but the monster immediately tries to attack him. Because of that, he uses his Mars ability, throwing an extreme punch at the giant monster, which ends up crashing to the ground. On the way to school, the teacher was giving a lesson until he suddenly became irritated by something. When he looked to the back of the classroom, it was Yanagi, who had fallen asleep at that moment. The teacher grabs Yanagi and says good morning to him, and Yanagi, looking around, asks what is going on. He thought he was at a pet shop, but in reality, he was at school. The teacher gets even more irritated and tells him to go stand in the hallway. As Yanagi walks past the other students, everyone starts saying that Yanagi is a huge headache and that he should just go home. Another student says that Yanagi should not be in the same class as them, since they are ability users, and Yanagi simply agrees with everything they say. Ability users. About 100 years ago, people with natural superpowers began appearing out of nowhere. Around the same time, monsters and aberrations also started to appear. The only way to defeat those monsters was through people who were ability users. The government formed a counterattack organization, similar to a special counterattack unit, and they worked to exterminate monsters. Yanagi was walking through his school when some people actually approached him and told him to buy drinks for them. However, one of the boys said that if Yanagi refused, he would simply demonstrate his power, which had a score of 5,058. Since Yanagi was known as someone with no power, he could simply accept his place as their slave. Yanagi says that their power is pretty cool, and that he could teach them a little about it, and that he would tell the teacher. The student then tries to hit Yanagi, but says he was just joking and that he would handle them easily. Long ago, people's strength began to be measured by numbers, and that group of boys was known as 5,058, which was extremely high for a school. Members of the Special Counterattack Unit have abilities with much higher scores, reaching 1,000 or even far beyond into the millions. In this world, the higher your ability score is, the more seriously you are taken. Yanagi's score was 0, and in reality, almost everyone had an ability. Because of that, Yanagi was basically known as useless, a powerless person, and an ability worth 0 was nothing more than something to stare at. After leaving the drinks on the boys' desks, Yanagi returns home. There, his sister Yanagi was waiting. Yanagi was eating and ended up getting one for Yanagi as well. After Yanagi opens the fridge and grabs some food, he asks his sister how school has been going. Yanagi says everything is fine and asks about Yanagi. He says that the usual things were happening with the popular guys, so he was living a perfect school life. His sister says that it was not perfect at all, and that it was time for Yanagi to stop hiding these things and tell everyone what was really happening. But that was just another day for Yanagi, and he did not want to complain or anything like that. As long as he had friends who would help him, everything was fine. So Yanagi decides to go to his room to watch some videos. However, his sister tells him she is being serious, and that seeing Yanagi like that is painful. Yanagi tries to get Yanagi's attention, but she says he should just tell the truth to everyone. The reason his score always appears as 0 is because his ability is overwhelmingly insane, to the point that it starts glitching the system, and that 0 is simply an error. Yanagi says that it is transcendent, an ability that allows him to sublimate into another existence once certain conditions are met. In that world, your score is everything, and if the word really spreads that it is 0, it would create an absolute case, and everyone would be dragged into the same chaos as Yanagi, especially his sister. Yanagi says that everything will be fine. Yanagi then says that this is why he prefers being powerless. In a world full of crazy people like that, Yanagi prefers having peace within his family, which is the most important thing. Yanagi says she understands the situation, but that he should not keep pushing himself down for others. Yanagi says he already mentioned before that he has something to do, so everything will be fine. He shows something on his phone, a small animal from the pet shop, and his sister immediately recognizes it. The next day, he plans to go to the mall with his dog, and he is really excited about it. Yanagi says that as long as Yanagi is happy, that is all that matters, and she asks the dog to take care of both her and her brother. The next day, news starts spreading. A high-ranking monster has appeared near the mall, and because of that, the area has been declared an evacuation zone, and entry is currently forbidden. Yanagi says that it has to be a joke, that he had been thinking about that day all week, and that it was incredibly cruel. Soon after, firefighters approach and say that the evacuation of everyone from the mall has been completed, and Yanagi wonders what is happening. He asks if the animals from the pet shop were evacuated as well, but the firefighter does not have that information. Suddenly, an explosion occurs inside the mall, and it becomes clear that a battle is happening. Everyone feels the explosion, and Yanagi decides to take a look. He closes his eyes and checks what is happening using his power. He sees a monster, and realizes that there is another one inside, and the aura it gives off is on a completely different level from the one outside. Near the monster, there is a child. Because of that, Yanagi slips under the restricted zone and rushes into the mall. At that moment, the child is watching as the monsters destroy the entire mall. One of the monsters notices the child. The child panics, and when pipes start flying toward her, someone appears at the last second to save her. It is Yanagi. He asks if she is hurt, and the child says no. Since everyone has already been evacuated, she should run outside as well. The child runs away, and from that moment on, Yanagi decides to deal with the monster himself. It is a mid-class monster known as a city destroyer, one that can control objects floating around its body. Yanagi thinks about talking to his dog before finishing this, since she always listens to him without making a scary face. She is a precious friend to Yanagi, a source of comfort, and this monster has interrupted all the peaceful moments he had. The monster prepares itself. When it rises to attack Yanagi, an aura appears Mars once again. Yanagi uses his power. The monster attacks him directly, but when the smoke clears, the monster realizes something. Yanagi is holding its punch, as if it were nothing. That is the moment to move quickly. Mars is one of the gods Yanagi has become, drastically enhancing his physical abilities and all 5 senses. This ability allows him to use the authority of the gods, and with a single full-powered punch, he completely destroys the monster, creating a massive hole in its chest. Yanagi may have gone too far. When he looks to the side, things are getting very noisy, and he thinks he should probably run. At that moment, 3 girls from the special unit appear. They say they heard that the evacuation was complete. Yanagi notices a mark on their chests, a dragon emblem. They are from the special unit. They see the destroyed monster behind Yanagi and ask whether he is just a civilian or the one who did this. Yanagi says he was just there calmly. One of the girls draws her weapon and says she will take Yanagi into custody. However, they start discussing the destruction and decide that Yanagi is probably just a civilian who stayed behind. Another girl says she will handle the civilians, and the leader says she can take care of everything alone, while the other 2 stay back and watch. Yanagi says it is hard to look at, but that she does not understand anything. Then the girl suddenly appears behind Yanagi and says that he did not make any suspicious movements, and that it should be noted in his record. She is fast, appearing behind him in an instant. It might have been teleportation. Yanagi then shows them his ability score on his phone. They check it quickly and see that he is level 0. He could be considered a protected species. They conclude that he was just someone left behind and that everything is fine. For a moment, everyone relaxes. The girl apologizes and introduces herself as Hattori. Another introduces herself as Sarenji, and the last one as Hirasaka. From then on, they can talk calmly. They comment on the mess and say, Yanagi has nerves of steel. Suddenly, they feel something strange. They shake Yanagi's hand and say that even if his score is 0, his powers might awaken someday. Yanagi thanks them and asks their names. Since they are investigating the scene, they need a witness. Yanagi says he will leave, and they say goodbye to him. As he walks away, Yanagi thinks about how close that was, and that the last thing he wants is for people to understand his power. Luckily, since his score reads 0, he can move freely. He also thinks that the girl named Hattori was really cute. Back at school, Yanagi ends up serving the others again. They get angry because he bought the wrong drink, and Yanagi explains that they will never be popular with girls if they keep drinking such specific things. They get irritated, and Yanagi asks if he should get another drink the way they want. After that, they say something feels strange, and that Yanagi has been acting different lately. They say he is getting full of himself, and that they should put him in his place once and for all. One boy says he has someone to deal with that. People who do not know the meaning of mercy. That abandoned place should be perfect, and now the problems are finally settling down. They then ask if Yanagi has a younger sister who is the complete opposite of him, and say that she is actually really cute. Yanagi approaches them and says that he brought their drinks, and the boys thank him for it. Yanagi feels like it is going to rain that day, so he decides to head home a little faster. At that moment, his phone rings, and he realizes it is a message from a class announcement sent by the number 1 boy. The message tells him to go to an abandoned house, and there is even an image attached showing Yanagi's sister going there. The protagonist immediately gets irritated and decides to call his sister. She answers from home, asking if something happened. At least she was safe, and that was what mattered most at that moment. She then says that she made dinner and that he should come home quickly. Yanagi tells her not to worry and ends the call, but then notices that the photo of his sister was sent to him, meaning that if he did not go to that abandoned place, they would go after her next. Yanagi realizes that they crossed the line, that this meant something terrible, and that he would not let them get away with this. As he heads toward the abandoned place, the people there are talking about 300,000 yen for a child, which was easy money. Business had been good for them lately, and they were expecting a commission or the child of someone very important to justify that kind of payment. After all, that child had no power at all, and beating someone without power was kind of pathetic, but they planned to forget about that child. Everyone was far more interested in Yanagi's sister. They wanted her because she seemed calmer and also much cuter. Soon, one of the boys notices something strange happening behind them. They see a hole in the wall and start wondering what it could be. A blade comes through, and a monster appears. It looked like an extremely high-level monster. The boys decide to run, but the monster attacks all of them at once, slicing some of them and cutting others in half. It was a catastrophe unfolding at that moment, a monster capable of destroying an entire region or even multiple states. A monster of the highest possible classification, also known as the demon, that has already killed 500,000 humans. Shortly after, as Yanagi is on his way, he receives an alert saying that a monster has appeared near his location, a very high-ranking monster. Yanagi thinks that maybe he should not chase after it and decides to keep going. While everything is happening, the protagonist walks down the street, realizing that an extremely powerful monster has appeared. These monsters are ranked from F to SSS. Many close combat abilities can defeat the lower-ranked ones, but higher-ranked monsters are entities with enough power to cause a global crisis. Then Yanagi begins to sense a smell. He thinks maybe they are playing a joke on him. The place he needs to go is down that path, but the smell keeps getting stronger. As he gets closer, he realizes it is the smell of blood from all the decapitated bodies scattered around. It is horrifying, and Yanagi senses an attack coming toward him. He quickly dodges, but the attack slices through all the houses around him. It was close. If he had hesitated for even one more second, Yanagi would have been done for. When he carefully observes the distance, he sees a monster running straight toward him. The first sighting of this monster was 70 years ago in London. Ability users managed to defeat it, but it caused 498,547 deaths. This creature appears humanoid and shows signs of extensive combat training. To Yanagi, it looks like a minotaur. His luck must have been terrible lately. Yanagi drops his backpack to the ground and says that he is tired of this and that he will use purification. He immediately summons Mars, who blocks the monster's attack and destroys everything behind them. Yanagi prepares himself for the fight because his sister is at home cooking and waiting for him. He raises a single finger, and that alone is enough to make the monster feel unbearable pain. Yanagi needs to end this quickly, so he attacks with everything he has, blasting the monster backward. A helicopter appears in the distance. It is the same girls Hattori, Sairenji, and Hirasaka observing what is happening. They see the fight and realize they need to move in to check the situation. Hattori tells them to look carefully, and then realizes it is Yanagi fighting. His finger is cut, which upsets him slightly. The monster then turns into stone and instantly appears beside Yanagi. Yanagi manages to dodge and throws himself backward. This monster has abilities, and Yanagi has no idea what kind of monster it truly is. When it turns into stone and reappears behind him, it seems to be teleportation, swapping positions with a nearby stone. Another stone is swapped, and Yanagi decides to focus on sound instead. He senses movement beside him, but the monster appears behind him again, another teleport. It slashes Yanagi's back, and Yanagi steps forward, admitting that he underestimated the monster. He realizes it is actually very skilled. But now, it is time to end the battle once and for all. He decides he will not hold back anymore. He enters his ascension phase, awakening Mars fully, releasing his hair and beard. The presence behind Yanagi is Gladius, a being of overwhelming speed and strength, a true warrior without equal. The monster begins to tremble, and Yanagi's hair starts turning white. Realizing the monster is nothing compared to him, Yanagi charges forward. Mars's spear releases immense power, and the monster senses it. The monster rushes Yanagi again, turning into stone and teleporting. But as it tries to attack, Mars blocks it, and together they land a punch that splits the creature in half. Yanagi apologizes, saying he cannot hold back. He then notices the monster starting to heal regeneration. The monster laughs and charges again. Yanagi punches it straight in the stomach and says he will eliminate any species that stands in his way. That is the first punch of annihilation, completely destroying the monster. Mars disappears, and Yanagi returns to normal, saying that was quite an ordeal, but he cannot waste time here. He needs to go where he was called immediately. Yanagi grabs his backpack and starts running, constantly watching his surroundings. When he reaches the warehouse he was supposed to go to, he sees that everyone there is already dead. The group is gone, and it seems he arrived too late. He receives a message from his sister, asking where he is. Dinner is getting cold, and she is getting angry. Yanagi decides he has to rush home. Suddenly, 3 girls appear in front of him. It has been a while since they last met. They are from the special unit. Hattori asks if Yanagi remembers her. Of course he does, and she gets excited, saying it makes her really happy. Yanagi asks why they are there, wondering if they are looking for the high-ranking monster, but it seems it was not detected. Hattori then says they came because of him, leaving Yanagi confused. Hattori explains that she has never seen an ability that turns someone's hair completely white, and that the way Yanagi destroyed the monster into millions of pieces was incredible. Yanagi says he does not really understand what she is talking about, but his sister is waiting, so he needs to leave. Then Sarenji steps forward and says she took the liberty of recording the fight. After calmly analyzing the footage, they identified Yanagi as the one fighting. They keep records of all their missions, and the results are conclusive. However, the machine always shows Yanagi's power score as 0, which is suspicious. But it is not because he has no power. Instead, they wonder what exactly he is, and that is why they came. Leaving a power like Yanagi's unused would be a crime. Based on their classification, they realize the situation is serious, since not even the elite can defeat high-ranking monsters so easily on their own. They need Yanagi's strength. They want him in the special unit. Yanagi is confused and asks why he would join. Hattori says he does not need to answer right now. She hands him her personal phone number and email, telling him to decide on his own and that she will wait for his answer. Yanagi takes the paper, freezes, and says this is the first time in his life a girl has given him her number. At that moment, the announcement confirming the annihilation of the high-ranking monster is released, and the evacuation order is lifted. Yanagi saves the number and email. It is also the first time he has a contact outside his family, and it is a girl's number. He heads home, noticing how noisy everything is. When he enters the house, he sees Hattori there, apologizing for the intrusion. Yanagi is startled, and Hattori explains that she came for his answer. Even though they just met again, she was too excited to sit still and wait. Yanagi asks where Yanagi met such a cute girl. Yanagi says it is a long story, but then realizes how strange it is that they are all eating together so calmly. Hattori says Yanagi should eat, and they can talk while doing so. Yanagi asks if there is any food left for him, and Hattori says she will heat it up and that he should change clothes. Hattori had been waiting for this moment, and Yanagi feels surprised. He cannot believe he walked all the way home, and on top of that, Hattori is a bit of a strange girl. Later, Yanagi is in his room, thinking that thanks to her, everyone seemed to be having fun, and that should be enough. After some time passes, Yanagi falls asleep. He collapses after changing clothes, and by the time he wakes up, it is already afternoon. He must have slept for a long time. There is a note on the table. It is a letter from his sister saying that he must be exhausted. She heard everything from Hattori after Yanagi fell asleep about the monster, his power, and the invitation to join the unit. Yanagi should stay home and rest until he is fully recovered. She already called his school and told them he would be staying home for a while. Yanagi's sister also learned about the invitation. The special unit is government-run, and survival rates on missions rarely exceed 70%. However, the pay is enormous. Members are always seen as symbols of hope. They are admired, and everyone ends up loving them. Becoming a member comes with privileges, but it also comes with a price. Yanagi thinks that if he joined, he would cause a lot of trouble for his sister, and maybe that smile he always got from her would slowly disappear. But then someone knocks on the door, and Yanagi opens it to see who it is. Of course, it is Hattori standing there. Yanagi is surprised and realizes she is wearing completely casual clothes, which makes things feel even more complicated. Hattori apologizes about the day before, and Yanagi apologizes too, because he ended up falling asleep. He asks why she came. In truth, they need to go to Yanagi's school to check something. After a while, they start walking, and Yanagi's heart is racing because he has never walked side by side with a girl before. From an outside perspective, Yanagi wonders if they look like a couple right now, and maybe something actually changed in his life for this kind of good thing to happen. Hattori explains that she had a good talk with Yanagi's sister earlier. Then Hattori explains that Yanagi really wants Yanagi to join the special unit. Yanagi says that is exactly what she wants. She wants him to stop hiding his powers. Right after that, Hattori asks if the reason Yanagi hides his powers is related to that incident. Yanagi stays silent, then says it is about the Witch of Perth, the fully armored knight who mysteriously appeared beside a girl whose score was 0. Without any warning, he annihilated the Perth metropolis, a city with a population of 2 million people. Naturally, everyone became afraid of a girl who could bring catastrophe, so they called her a witch. Ever since that tragedy, anyone with a 0 score who still possessed power would be treated differently. For his sister's sake, Yanagi never allowed anyone to learn about his abilities. But Hattori explains that if Yanagi joined the unit, it would be guaranteed that the entire world would discover his power. Yanagi falls silent and asks if the world would truly be able to welcome someone like him. Hattori does not know what could happen, but if people do not welcome him, then they should simply realize how incredible he is, because everyone already knows Yanagi's power is amazing. Yanagi realizes that nobody really has a choice, and he never thought something like that could even cross his mind. He has never seen other people think the same way. Then he arrives at his sister's school and sees people watching students leave. It is the first time Yanagi has ever shown up at her school, and he realizes his sister is probably one of the most popular girls there. Right after that, Yanagi asks Hattori why they are hiding so much. She says she will show him, and there she is, Yanagi's sister, alone, with no one around her. Yanagi sees it and is shocked. Knowing his sister looks completely sad makes him panic. That look on her face, Yanagi has never once seen her look like that at home. Yanagi asks what is happening, why his sister looks so sad. He wonders if she is not supposed to be having fun at school. Maybe she fought with a friend and is feeling down, or maybe she just had a horrible day. Then Hattori explains that this happens every single day. Yanagi always comes home alone. Yanagi asks what happened to her friends. She never said she had friends, and she always walks to school alone. Maybe it was not completely terrible, but she said school is hard for her. Yanagi turns and asks if she is being bullied, and he wonders who is making her feel that sad. Hattori explains that the one who makes Yanagi sad is Yanagi himself. The person who always makes her sad is Yanagi. Yanagi is obviously shocked and asks why. It is because she has a brother who has no power, and that makes the school push her aside. She is not being bullied because she says everyone is just distant. She cannot get close to anyone. Yanagi asks why something like that is happening. The fact that he pretends to be powerless is really causing problems for her. Then Yanagi watches closely as his sister arrives in front of their house. She takes a deep breath and slaps both sides of her face twice, then puts on a smile and walks in, saying she is home. Yanagi's sister obviously knows how he feels, and it seems she decided she would keep smiling whenever she is at home. Yanagi feels crushed and runs into the house, greeting his sister loudly. She gets angry and asks where he was, and she leaves a note telling him to stay home because he is injured. Yanagi apologizes and sees his sister still upset, so he says he will make dinner tonight, and she gets excited. That night, Yanagi cooks dinner, wondering how long she has been hiding that side of herself. He feels pathetic, and he knows he could never say it directly to her face. So he decides to make an omelet that spells out, "I'm sorry." She asks what that is, and whether he is apologizing for what happened earlier. She tells him not to worry, because all she wanted was to make sure he could rest properly. The next day, seeing his sister enjoying the food, Yanagi leaves the dining room, saying he will not let her suffer anymore. He decides he will stop lying to himself, because he wants to see her genuine smile for once. So he calls Hattori and asks if he can talk to her for a moment. When Yanagi goes to school, he confronts the 3 people who were trying to boss him around. Yanagi says he never forgot what they said about the warehouse. The boy says Yanagi actually went there, but since he was not there and neither was his group, he does not really know what happened. Yanagi gets irritated, and the boy says he sent some people to beat Yanagi up, but then he heard everything about the monster that appeared, and that Yanagi was just lucky. He says he will always be there for the next conversation, and Yanagi should be ready. Yanagi tells him there will never be a next time, because this will be the last time they ever see each other. The boys ask if Yanagi is finally leaving everything behind, and say it is good, because they never want to see his face again. Yanagi then says he is joining the special unit. They start laughing, asking what happened to him, because it is crazy to think someone could get in without any power. But Yanagi summons his incredible power, the power of Mars, and it blasts the boys backward in fear. They cannot understand how Yanagi has power, an aura that feels overwhelming. No one can stop trembling. Yanagi says he only held back for his sister's sake, but now that they cross that line, Yanagi throws a punch that lands right beside the boy, destroying the school wall and injuring him from the shockwave alone. That was a mistake. Even if people feared Yanagi, it could still make everyone hate him. Yanagi remembers what Hattori said, that his power is incredible, and people will have no choice but to admire him. From now on, he will never hide his power again, even if his score is 0. They will never be able to involve themselves with Yanagi again. The boy wets himself, realizing he never understood how someone with a 0 score could have power that could reach nearly 100,000. Yanagi decides to leave the school. Outside, Hattori is waiting for him. Yanagi apologizes for making her wait, and she says it is fine, since they had been running around for a while anyway. She then asks how it felt to say goodbye to his schoolmates, and whether everyone was crying. Yanagi says they will probably be very sad to see him go, but they will carry that burden for the rest of their lives. Soon they arrive at the Special Units building. It is massive, and Yanagi has never seen a place that big in his life. Right next to it, there is an apartment that will be the new home for Yanagi and his sister. Yanagi is extremely excited when she sees the room for the first time. Yanagi asks if she likes it, and of course she does. Then they enter the building to check it out. Yanagi asks how many members are stationed in the area. Including Yanagi, there are now 8 members. Many teams are made up of only 4 people, and some smaller cities have only 2. That means Japan's operation is significantly stronger than before. They head up to the 30th floor, and Hattori shows Yanagi where his assigned area is. There is a uniform inside that he needs to change into right away. There is also a temporary access card with his name on it, which he has to swipe to unlock doors. Yanagi cannot lose it. He enters, then approaches Hattori, Sairenji, and Hirasaka, who are also there. Hirasaka asks what that is. Was he taking a tour of the place? That is exactly what it was. But Sairenji says that mysterious power of his is not trustworthy. Hattori says she is sure they will find out as they spend some time with him. Yanagi returns, apologizing for making them wait. The uniform fits him really well, and Yanagi is surprised because it actually looks cool. Yanagi finally gets excited and says it is good to meet everyone there. Then he asks where they are taking him, and the answer is obvious, the training area. They go down to floor B1, and as they walk, Yanagi asks what else is down there besides the training space. The leader is waiting for him there. When Yanagi arrives, a man greets them. That man is the leader. He is the 15th strongest ability user on the entire planet Earth, and his name is Kongu. They shake hands, and Yanagi feels Kongu's power through his grip. Kongu is doing it on purpose. It feels like an aura battle, and that is the strength of the man who leads the unit. Kongu says he has heard a lot about Yanagi, that he defeated a high-ranking monster by himself, and that he did it while his power score still reads as 0. Kongu asks how that is even possible. Yanagi cannot really give him a proper explanation. It is not the same kind of curiosity as the girls had. The leader is simply the type of person who needs to see things with his own eyes. So Kongu tells Yanagi to demonstrate his power right now, and he will judge whether Yanagi truly belongs in the unit or not. There is still the case surrounding the witch, and it makes sense that they want to be absolutely sure. Kongu is a good leader, and Yanagi does not mind showing his power. So the leader explains that the area is protected by a special barrier, and that it will not break easily, so Yanagi does not need to hold back any of his power. This is not about winning or losing, this is simply about showing what Yanagi's power looks like, hitting with everything he has. Yanagi understands, so he summons Mars, who appears behind him. The man says it is a strange aura, like it is Yanagi's power, but at the same time it does not feel like Yanagi's power. Now the leader summons a paladin, and a cube forms behind him, like a wall of light. The leader's power allows him to manipulate a total of 10 barriers that can block any attack. He will start with 4 barriers to see what Yanagi can do. Yanagi asks if he is sure about that, and the leader asks what he means. So Yanagi decides to throw a punch. The leader notices a strange red aura, and Yanagi's power suddenly rises out of nowhere. It is time to see what Yanagi's attack looks like against the 15th strongest person in the world. At that moment, the leader realizes he needs 7 more barriers. Then Yanagi throws Mars's spear and strikes the barrier with everything he has, shattering it into countless pieces. Everyone is shocked, and when the fragments fall like glass, there is still another barrier intact right in front. The leader realizes that was close. It destroyed 4 or 5 of the barriers, the same amount normally required to stop an attack from a high-ranking monster. 6 barriers would have been enough, even for an even higher-ranked monster. And Yanagi still managed to crack the 7th barrier. The leader starts laughing, and it seems they just found an extremely powerful person for the unit. Everyone gets excited, and it really was very close. The girls wonder if that was some kind of physical reinforcement ability. Right after that, the leader gives Yanagi one final point. Someone opens the door in panic, asking what that noise was that suddenly appeared and whether everyone is okay. The leader says not to worry, they were just watching the new recruit use his full power. People ask who the new recruit is, because they do not recognize his face. From there, the higher-ups ask the leader about the cave incident. He says it is fine and that he simply decided. Then the leader places a hand on Yanagi's shoulder and says he has a subjugation assignment for him, with a team that will go to the Labyrinth Cave. It will be Yanagi's first mission. Someone asks if they are really sending a rookie out right away, but it is fine, because Yanagi's power is self-sufficient, and everyone should have heard about the monster that was destroyed recently. Soon, they introduce themselves to each other, saying it is a pleasure to meet. They say that if something happens on Yanagi's first mission, it is fine if he gets hurt. Hirasaka, and another girl named Kukuri. After introductions, Yanagi realizes everyone in the unit is truly different from each other. The boss introduces Hirasaka as the crazy healer, and Kukuri as a prophet, and both are support members. Both have extremely rare abilities, and everyone welcomes Yanagi to the special unit. At that moment they go to the conference room, where they explain the mission details. The objective is to investigate the Labyrinth Cave that appeared out of nowhere. The government sent a team in, and then contact was completely lost. The girls think trusting the government at this moment would be incompetent. Then someone asks if they were simply erased. There is no confirmation that the team is dead, but they received multiple communications saying they lost contact with everyone. With communications down, they cannot predict what will happen or what level the monsters inside are. Everyone is assuming a very high-ranking monster, or even worse. There can be no mistakes. They cannot afford mistakes right now, because that would make things extremely dangerous for the group. The next team lineup is the leader, Hattori, Sairenji, and Yanagi. The other guy and Hirasaka will stay in the back command. In an emergency, they will rely on their teleport ability. And lastly, Kukuri will deliver the prophecy results. Yanagi asks what is going on, and Kukuri says that for this mission, there will be a drastic change. Someone on the subjugation team will die. Everyone is shocked. Yanagi asks if she is joking, but she says prophecies are never wrong, and they need to take her words to heart. Kukuri tells everyone to be careful. Yanagi asks if nobody is afraid to die, since they are hearing death prophecies like that. If that is true, then one day it will become reality. Thinking about it, Yanagi would do anything to avoid turning his sister into constant worry. The leader says they have no idea what will happen in the mission, but they need to be far more careful than before. Hattori looks at Yanagi and says everything will be fine, and that no matter what happens, she will protect him. Yanagi tells her not to sacrifice herself because of him, and she says she only wants to protect him. Yanagi thanks her and says he will not die, and if anything happens, he will protect everyone. The next day, everyone decides to drive there, and Yanagi ends up squeezed into the back seat because the girls are sitting on his lap, and he wonders what is happening. Hattori says her butt hurts because the ground is terrible, and Sairenji says the same thing. Yanagi asks the leader to do something, and the leader says he has a flower in each hand, and Yanagi is still complaining, so Yanagi should ask for divine punishment. Yanagi finds it completely confusing, but he decides he will accept it. After they get out of the car, they realize they are at the entrance. The leader tells everyone not to forget the prophecy and to stay together. Then smoke suddenly appears, saying they finally entered, that the special unit finally managed to get inside Japan's special unit, the unit with no weaknesses. Everyone must proceed into the assigned labyrinth, that is the plan, and the smoke leads them deeper into the cave. Hattori asks if something is starting to feel strange. It feels like there are ghosts around. Fighting ghosts would be bad, because they do not ignite, they do not take physical attacks, and nobody is a fan of teleporting either, because it does not work on ghosts. The girls do not immediately think about attacking a ghost. Then Yanagi asks them what is going on with that backpack. The backpack is an offensive type ability that brings out weapons. A support type being that prepared to enter combat is unusual. That means she is even more impressive. Hattori says yes, the girls are prepared to jump into battle if necessary. They start moving through the brush and the visibility becomes terrible. If a monster appears out of nowhere, their reaction time will be weak. But then a cube forms around them, and the leader says that should solve the problem. It is his protection cube. Everyone says the leader is really cool. Right in front, some goblin-shaped monsters appear and leap at them. Yanagi prepares to attack, but a barrier appears in front of him and slices one monster's head off. Yanagi is shocked, and the barriers start shredding the monsters in mid-air. Yanagi thought the leader's power was purely defensive, but he was wrong. Barriers flying through the air like weapons is something Yanagi has probably never seen in his life. It is simple, he does not just have endless defense, he is also an offensive type user, and now things are finally starting. Yanagi realizes the leader has not even used any special property yet. Hattori explains what the properties are: absorption, explosion, distortion, and disintegration. Depending on how the battle goes, the leader can apply these 4 properties to his barriers to guarantee his attacks. Yanagi thinks they have to be joking. The leader is basically invincible, and he can still create more barriers as they move forward. There is no way. It is overwhelming. In the end, they reach a door, and the leader says he can feel that this is the right place. Yanagi says that anyone who survived this must have been depending on that feeling. Yanagi can sense death on the other side of the door. The leader asks if everyone is ready, and after they agree, the doors open. At first they think nothing is coming, but then they see a snake head in front of them and a lion's body. It is a chimera. After being startled, they realize it is a high-ranking monster with a lion head, a goat body, and also a snake head. The lion head breathes fire at them, and at that moment a barrier forms. The leader uses the absorption talent. This is the prototype. Then Hattori, who is behind, decides to go all in with speed to attack the chimera. Her side-to-side strikes start splitting the chimera's body apart. Yanagi wonders when she got that fast. Her ability accelerates her like a phenomenon. It is the fastest ability in the world. The chimera tries to attack Hattori, but it is too late. Its head explodes. Yanagi wonders what happened. Sarenji blew it up. Her ability, teleportation, lets her teleport to places she has visited before or locations within her line of sight, and she can even transmute objects while touching them. So she teleported a bomb she was holding directly into the chimera's mouth. These were skilled ability users. This was the special unit, and Yanagi is in it. The chimera then starts growing stronger, and they realize the monster is far more powerful than they thought. Yanagi realizes this is the special power. The leader says they are almost done, and the final result should belong to Yanagi. He should finish it with a single attack. Yanagi understands, so he dodges the chimera's strike. Then he summons Mars and throws a full power punch into the chimera, splitting the monster in half. They say it is incredible that he could split it like that, and because everyone weakened it first, the monster's presence disappears. Yanagi wonders if it is over, but then something feels different. Sarenji starts acting tense and asks what is happening. She is thinking about whether the lost government team could have dealt with something like this. What she was saying might actually make sense. They did not see any trace that the other team passed through there, and there might not be any signs that they were defeated by the chimera in that room. If that is true, Yanagi asks where the survival team could be. He decides to search the room a bit, then starts tapping on the walls to see if there is some kind of secondary entrance. He says that if he finds nothing suspicious, then he should go back, and that would be a good idea. But Yanagi starts wondering if that is really it, because when he looks closely, it seems like there is a strange pattern or a weird-looking hole. That stone starts to glow, and the leader tells him to get back, but it is already too late. When Yanagi looks closely, he and Hattori have been teleported somewhere else. They are not just in the cave anymore, they are in the middle of a forest, and maybe that light sent them into another dimension. Hattori thinks it is strange, because if everything was supposed to end with the chimera, then they should focus on the fact that the real fight might be starting now. Yanagi keeps thinking about how they could have been forcibly transported. Hattori takes out her phone and tries calling the others, but there is no signal in that place. Maybe they were sent to a different location, or maybe they were still inside the cave. Hattori tells Yanagi to look, and when they do, they notice a tree that is different from the others, over 20 meters tall or something like that. Maybe they should head toward that giant tree. So they decide to move toward the tree, and while they are walking, Yanagi keeps wondering what could be happening. In past cases where this happened, the phenomenon was similar monsters that drag humans into other dimensions and play with them on their own terms. The only thing Yanagi can think of that matches is that you cannot escape that dimension unless you defeat the monster. In other cases, it was an extremely high-ranking monster. If that is what this is, then the prophecy was right. They end up making more noise than they expected, and then, when Yanagi looks to the side, he sees a body lying there. That uniform belongs to the survival team. So they made it into this dimension and were either murdered by a monster, or maybe they ran out of food. The other members might still be alive somewhere, so they decide to run and see what is going on. But the tree ends up swallowing the body as they move away. They start wondering what is happening. The giant tree is close, and maybe the rest of the team also moved within this dimension. They start thinking about how they can deal with the situation in front of them. The entire survival team is completely dead right in front of them. Hattori realizes it is the survival team, and she also senses an attack coming from behind, so they move. The monster says it is impressive that they dodged, and that it thought they were just ordinary humans. The tree was talking. Yanagi realizes this is going to be horrible to deal with, especially since it thinks they are mere humans. Hattori asks if that thing is the owner of this place, and it really seems like it. The tree starts demanding that they fear it, and with that human speech, there is no doubt without any doubt at all that it is a high-ranking monster. The tree attacks directly. They dodge, and Hattori says the attacks are extremely powerful and adapt very quickly. Yanagi says even the trajectory is hard to read, but the main body is not moving, and that is enough for Yanagi to attack. The tree gets torn apart, but it starts regenerating rapidly. That would be a nightmare. The tree screams that it is useless, and that they never had a chance against it to begin with. Yanagi rushes again, telling it to be quiet for a moment, and unleashes several strikes in a row, punching multiple holes through the tree. But the tree regenerates again, and calls Yanagi a ridiculous creature standing before it. Yanagi thinks he could keep doing this, but now there is another way to use his attacks. Hattori asks if Yanagi cannot erase it from existence, but the target is too large, and it might have a core or something like that. Hattori wonders how they could even find that inside such a massive body, because it does not feel realistic. Yanagi says it is not exactly an idea, but there is a technique he can use. Then his foot begins to glow intensely, and Yanagi signals for Hattori to jump as high as she can. She says, "It is fine." Yanagi apologizes for dragging everyone into this, but he needs to return to the surface, and he promises he will make the souls rest. Hattori jumps extremely high, and Yanagi uses a collapsing star that shines intensely in every direction. When Hattori lands, she asks what that was, and says he is incredible, but a massive hole was created in the forest. She thinks that after taking that hit, the monster should be dead. But when they look back, the tree has regenerated, and this time it has doubled. They panic, realizing what is happening, and it is exactly what they suspected. The tree does have a core, but it is not inside that physical body. It exists somewhere across the entire space of the forest. Yanagi says the forest is huge. The tree tells him to go look, and asks how long he thinks he can last. They are supposed to find the single core in that vast space, with only the two of them, and it is not just about finding it, they also have to dodge branches attacking them the entire time. That would be too much even for Mars. Hattori tells Yanagi to step back, because she will kill that monster. Yanagi asks what she is planning to do. Yanagi's ability cannot burn down the entire forest space, so in that case, she is the only one who can handle it, meaning the chance belongs to her. The tree tells her to go look. Everything is spread across the entire forest, so Hattori uses her speed, ability, and starts running all over the forest, all at once. The tree gets shocked, and Hattori says she needs to go even faster. She dashes from tree to tree, sprinting through the entire forest. Yanagi realizes she is moving across the forest in the blink of an eye. The tree tries to track her with attacks, but Hattori dodges and keeps running. Her ability accelerates her infinitely, but there is a limit before her body breaks. Hattori knows she cannot use that technique until her body starts burning little by little. The tree says that is bad, and then it starts generating countless branches all at once, saying it will crush her. And at that moment, when the girl leaps upward, Hattori says she will end it all, and uses the Tree of 1,000 Worlds, creating a crack across the entire world. The tree cannot believe it could be defeated by a mere human. Then an explosion happens, and Yanagi runs to check if Hattori is okay. She landed a direct hit, and maybe the core is destroyed. But when they look, the tree says she was careless, and that she really thought she could destroy its core. The tree regenerates all at once again, and it looks like it is about to start over. They cannot be sure what will happen. Hattori thinks it is useless. She apologizes to everyone, and to Yanagi, saying she was the one who dragged him into this world, and she is sorry she could not protect him. But Yanagi stands up and says it is too early to give up, and that he will handle things from here. The tree tells him to move aside, and let that girl face the consequences and disappear. Yanagi tells the tree to prepare itself. Hattori says it is useless. Then Yanagi summons the sun god. Hattori is shocked when she sees it. Everything starts burning, and Yanagi says it is his turn now. The tree is terrified by what is in front of it, and Hattori cannot believe there is another ability inside Yanagi. A god that controls flame, raising the temperature by millions of degrees. Nothing can escape the hell under his command. The tree asks if it is going to be burned, and says this is dangerous. Yanagi points forward and speaks of the flames. He is roasting that tree. When he tells it to shut up, the tree tries to attack Yanagi, but it is useless. Every branch that comes close burns instantly. Yanagi says he is an executioner. The tree starts to glow, and in that state, fire cannot burn it. But Yanagi says that is useless too, and to a god's presence, a fake like that is so pathetic he cannot even laugh. Hattori asks what is happening, and the tree panics. Then, a fireball flies toward the tree, and several clowns begin to appear. Yanagi tells them all to dance, and the clowns scatter between the trees and run through the forest. The tree wonders how that could be called a god. It is impossible. It is terrible. It is something so bad it feels like a joke. The tree begs for the clowns to disappear, but whenever it tries to attack one, the clown vanishes. And then the entire forest ignites all at once. Yanagi says the tree is stubborn, and it should accept defeat the best way possible. But the tree asks if that is all Yanagi has, if that is the limit of a mere human. In that space, nobody should be able to stand against the tree. Then Yanagi starts flying and says not to misunderstand. He enters the god's ascension phase, and countless arms of fire begin to grow. Hattori is shocked, and the tree wonders what kind of world that god comes from. Yanagi says he is a god, and now it is time for ruin, time for the suffering the tree caused to end. For those it killed, he is the fire of the end. The tree begins glowing intensely and cracking apart. That reality starts cracking into thousands of pieces. When Yanagi steps down, the ground itself is already burned. It will take time to clean, but it seems it is over. An entire reality has been burned away. After standing in that empty space and looking up at the sky, they see everything beginning to break. Yanagi says, now it is time to escape that place, and he asks Raphael if she is okay. The girl stands up and says she is fine, and that he does not need to worry. She says she was just scared by his power, because he never said he had another god in all of this, and she asks who Yanagi really is. After pulling herself together, Hattori asks what Yanagi meant by that. Yanagi introduces himself, saying he is nothing more and nothing less than the same Yanagi as always. But what matters is that he was planning to take down the monster with her. Hattori says she has no idea what he is talking about, and Yanagi says he understood everything, but that is not what it is. When she was a rookie, something similar happened, and the boss sacrificed himself to save her. Back then she thought it should have been her, that it was her turn to sacrifice herself to save Yanagi. Yanagi goes quiet and says he hates that kind of thinking. He says he will not tell her she was wrong or anything like that, but dying because of a painful choice like that and leaving everyone behind, she does not need to die to solve problems. They should fight to solve it and survive. Yanagi refuses to lose, but they cannot be reckless because he will be the one protecting Hattori. She asks why he is going that far, and he says he was pulled onto that path, and now he is seeing a more suffocating kind of life. And she was the one who welcomed him, so she should not hesitate to ask him for anything. Hattori asks if he is really sure, because even though he has nothing to offer yet, he is still full of trouble, but he says it will be worth it. So Yanagi reaches out his hand, saying he is the strongest, and then they leave that reality. After that, they manage to regroup with the leader and the others. Apparently they had begun a search mission again because of what happened. The leader asks if they are okay, since they are covered in injuries and need to be healed. They say it is fine, and that after the healing, everything will be okay. Yanagi thought it would be that simple, everyone returning safely. So it ended up matching the prophecy, and they say it was all thanks to Yanagi. One day passes, and they are in the hospital. The healing ability really worked well, and things look better than expected. Yanagi is not 100% healed, but he ends up in the hospital anyway. His sister comes to visit him and asks how he is feeling. After a while, Yanagi looks confused and asks what she is wearing. It is a uniform. He also asks why Hattori is wearing that too. Hattori asks if Yanagi likes that kind of thing. It is not that he does not like it, but that is not the point. Yanagi says it is a little too eye-catching, and Hattori runs off, saying it is embarrassing. Yanagi's sister says she ran away, but it is all her fault. Then she sits down and asks how Yanagi is doing. Yanagi is basically healed, or close to it. Then she asks if the burns are from his power, since it was a high-ranking opponent. Yanagi says he did not even realize it, and he does not know how to choose how to use that whole ability. She says it is fine, because she does not really care about rankings. Compared to her own ability, there is no difference between those classifications. Then Yanagi's sister says he should call their mother tomorrow, because her points went up. Yanagi checks, and she has risen to 95,000.80. That is literally far beyond every student at school. For an ordinary student, that score is insanely high, and she is unique in the entire country. It is not at a critical level yet, but Yanagi asks if something is wrong. She says it is the same as always. She boxed at home and also made some dolls. She has been doing a lot of work, and it is not normal. For her points to deteriorate that much even without anyone noticing, he should call their mother again. But when he grabs his phone, he sees a call from the boss. He answers and asks what happened. Then Yanagi asks if something is wrong, and the boss asks if he has any injuries or anything like that. Yanagi is almost 100% recovered. He says it is a call and asks what happened. There is an emergency they need to handle, and depending on the situation, they need Yanagi's strength again. From now on, Yanagi needs to stay ready, because they will call him back for a meeting. Yanagi's sister asks what happened, and if he is already in demand. She says that is really good as a member of the special unit, because she cannot even imagine Yanagi losing anything, and that he should prepare for the hardest part of that meeting. They go to the Imperial Council. That is where all the veterans of national defense and all the secret organizations are gathered. Distinguished figures are present. An elderly man sits in the center and tells them to begin. He says the meeting is fortunate, that all documents are in order, and the agenda is prepared. The second daughter of the family as well, one of the biggest clans in Japan, is already decided. Her original ability is exceptionally rare and valuable. Because that information is leaking out, countless rats are already moving into position to secure their own advantage by ensuring the safety of that daughter. The old man says he wants to hear the opinion of the special unit. The chief of the special unit says that family has fortified protection, and they are also prepared with teleportation power. If anything happens, they can stay calm. Another old man says that might be a small problem. The fact is, they are dealing with multiple waves of disappearances, and also multiple monster appearances, and they need their power available to resolve anything at any moment. The chief says it is the first time he is hearing about mysterious disappearances, and that they only obtained conclusive evidence in the last few days. It is true that her ability is being used in the best way to help everyone, but another old man says they should not send the teleport girl. The one who says that is the girl's father, a man who supports the nation. He understands that many protectors are already prepared to help in any state, and they are not doing anything wrong. They are just using the abilities that they have. Soon they should proceed with the escort mission before everything is sealed, because that is the best they can do right now. And in that case, the special unit should proceed with the subjugation of the identified monster. Other families will provide weapons, and ranks should be held in reserve for emergencies, and then they will conclude that matter. But then the chief stands up, and the old man asks if the leader has a moment to talk. Only they are called into a specific room. Then a boy appears, saying he is a telepathy user. The leader asks what they need to discuss. That room is protected by soundproof barriers, and the old man says he has been very versatile lately, and that this is an extremely private conversation. Then the old man says he needs the leader to send an operation to the Takamiya family as a guard, and he should treat it as something that overrides even public statutes. But regardless of the proposal he offered at first, it seems the old man has suspicions inside the royal council itself. Someone is betraying everyone. This is a fake strategy, meant to draw the traitor out. They cannot imagine a malicious presence among them that would ruin the country, and they will use this opportunity to purge all of them at once. At least, the leadership knows there are people inside and outside, and it would be difficult to convert all protection into detailed measures. The leader says there is one more person they are not familiar with. The old man gets excited about that, but it would be rough for him as a rookie. The old man says he will make sure to send a gift afterward, since that is the only thing he wants from an organization at the moment. Then the telepathic man speaks to the old man, saying something bad happened. The old man cannot believe what he hears, and says they need to watch everyone closely. The leader asks what happened, and the old man says that the King of Destruction just arrived on a plane. A man has arrived, someone who has not been in Japan for a long time. He carries a monster subjugation record, and it seems something interesting is about to happen. The man picked up a newspaper and saw that an interesting person appeared, so he decided to walk straight through the airport. People say he is huge, that he must be at least 2 meters tall, and his chest is extremely defined. But they say to wait a second. He is the absolute of absolutes. He is Leon. The absolutes are 8 people who carry humanity's defense and exceed every limit humans ever thought possible. A single one of them can defeat multiple high-ranking monsters alone, and it is said their powers can rival gods and governments. Everyone tries to control these absolutes, and Leon is one of them. His fighting methods are brutal, and he is ranked 7th, also known as the King of Destruction. Someone with no official rank defeating high-ranking monsters clearly reached Leon's ears, and as soon as he heard about it, he decided to ask questions. The Japanese government quickly senses Leon's presence. A man inside Japan's government apologizes, saying Leon could potentially shake an entire nation. Leon says he is calm and that there is no need for all that chaos. Then he asks about the research. Leon's visit to Japan is just a letter he is delivering for something interesting that is about to happen, something that is within the usual flow. Understanding the situation, Leon grabs the man and says something more important. He should take Leon somewhere quiet to eat because he is hungry. Then they head to the special unit, where the chief speaks to Yanagi about a personal escort mission. The chief apologizes for asking Yanagi to do this right after he was badly injured, but Yanagi says he does not mind. The chief says that, under the circumstances of removing corruption among those at the top, Yanagi must become a guard so his identity will not be revealed. And the key point is that the family's ability on Monday is that valuable. It is a sublime origin, an ability that can amplify the power of anything. Not just living creatures, and abilities like that are always among the most dangerous. Yanagi understands and says that kind of ability could cause huge problems, and he believes he has been accepted for the job. So Yanagi agrees. Before Yanagi turns and leaves the room, the chief calls him back, saying there is something he needs to discuss about Yanagi's ability. They go to the top-floor penthouse and grab drinks for each other. The chief asks if any human is born with multiple abilities. Yanagi says he does not believe that is possible, but the chief says he is right, having multiple abilities is impossible. However, if someone somehow managed to do it, they could become something beyond what existence can handle in any situation. At the very least, the government would begin researching multi-ability users, and they would find a compatible woman who is needed for him to experiment with. And then, 1 week later, she would lose her own life. Nothing would be enough, not even her body or her soul. They were still far from obtaining the abilities, and at that time, even if a body was ranked with multiple digits, it still would not be enough. The experiment would be discarded right there. Yanagi has no idea something like that could happen, and the chief says it is one of the things the government tries hardest to hide. It is not something he can just throw out into the world so easily. Yanagi asks why he is telling him something so important, and the chief says it is because Yanagi, according to Hattori, used an ability to defeat the monster that was different from what he demonstrated. That means he is a multi-ability user. Yanagi does not know how to respond for a while. He stays quiet, and then says that, in terms of ability, he only has one. The chief cannot understand, and Yanagi says that when the time comes, he can explain in detail what is going on. The chief says he will not try to rush Yanagi, but he is thinking about the old experiment that left him very, very worried. Only Yanagi can truly understand it through his own body. So Yanagi needs to be extremely careful when using his powers, and the chief says he is counting on him. Yanagi runs off, and the chief pulls a pendant from his pocket and opens it, revealing the photo of a woman. He looks closely and closes the pendant. Then we move to an unknown building. Inside, the old man is talking to one of the 3 who was defeated. The demon says they should have taken care of it from the beginning, but the smoke says that even though it was a high classification, it still got broken. At the very least, they should have managed to kill one of them. The old man asks what happened, but the truth is the tree was too weak. Then, when they checked the cave, they found traces of fire used by a certain user. The old man asks what kind of ability that was, because there are no fire users in Japan, not even in the special unit. The smoke understands, and that is why it sent that person afterward. The scientist asks if he truly has multi-ability users. Even if it is only one ability, the scientist wants all of them bound with their hands behind their backs, and he still wants to dissect them and study their entire body and structure. The smoke tells the scientist to calm down and not stray too far from their objective. Even if today they have a lot of information to discuss about what to do with that little girl, they can still absorb her ability and greatly increase their own power. The demon asks where it is. It is now in the residence of a family, and it seems it was moved to a protected facility. He heard it has many guards, and it sounds fun. The demon gets excited and says he will defeat all of them. The scientist says he is just a maniac. Meanwhile, they head to the residence. Yanagi arrives and says that some people really do have money to build a place like this. Someone welcomes Yanagi in, and the butler introduces himself. Yanagi introduces himself as well, and the butler asks Yanagi to come inside. Yanagi was called for a mission. It is a great honor to serve as an escort for these people, but what matters now is the urgency. They are extremely excited that Yanagi is helping. They heard Yanagi is a very strong ability user, and that it is really impressive of him. Then the butler says there is still something he needs to confirm and asks why Yanagi accepted the mission. The butler is clearly being very cautious with him. The master of that house helped Yanagi financially in the past, so Yanagi is here to repay that kindness. The butler says that if that is the reason, then the master would always help those who need it. Yanagi says he made preparations so they would not find out he is from the special unit, and he also will not let his guard down for even a second. The family is waiting for Yanagi in the waiting room. After entering, Yanagi sees a woman and a child there. The woman is the older daughter. She is surprisingly beautiful, and her expression carries a lot of confidence, even though she is still young. And besides that, the child is the second daughter, the younger one, the girl who is part of the mission. The child asks if Yanagi is a good person, and he says he is especially a good person, and she gets excited. It seems she trusts Yanagi. Then the butler explains the escort mission details. The main objective is to transport both daughters safely to the facility, and then they can regroup away from the residence, along with the 16 guards stationed there. The journey to protection will not be easy. In total, they will use 5 cars, with 4 people assigned to each. They will travel in a convoy, with other cars surrounding the sisters' vehicle. Understanding that, they conclude Yanagi is a detection-type ability user. Yanagi says yes, but that is a lie. Still, his perception and ascension through Mars are more than enough compared to a detection type. He needs to constantly understand what is happening around them so they can put Yanagi in the same vehicle as the sisters, and that will be extremely effective. The guards are all ready. They enter the room as a precaution. The butler understands and apologizes that they have to leave in a rush, but Yanagi says it is fine, because all of it is for protection. The cars move out, and every guard is already prepared in each vehicle. Soon they ask Yanagi if he is detecting any abnormalities. There are no irregularities within 300 meters around him, but Yanagi keeps checking constantly. Still, he feels something is off. The sisters are scared. Even though the older sister tries to calm the younger one, it is still terrifying. Yanagi wonders why these sisters have to go through something this frightening. Breathing, movement, hostility. Yanagi will not allow anything like that to happen. Then, in that moment, there is a sniper on top of a building, ready to shoot. The sniper steadies his aim. Yanagi notices and confirms the presence of a sniper on a building 270 meters ahead. The butler immediately raises a protective wall. The shot does not hit. Instead, it rebounds back at the sniper. The sniper says it is impossible, and the man falls from the building. The butler relaxes. His power is sand control. Yanagi says that is incredible, that he can control sand. The butler says it is true, and that it is versatile. If he uses it right, it can attack instantly depending on the enemy's weight and strength, and it can even suffocate or crush. It is an incredible ability. Yanagi asks if the butler can protect the girls on his own, because if that is the case, Yanagi wants to do it. But then the demon arrives and grabs a truck with ease. Yanagi senses it and says there are 3 cars approaching at high speed. The guards say to leave everything to them and that they are preparing for anything. One of the vehicles is heavily armed and armored. Then the head guard steps up. A truck is thrown straight into the armored vehicle, and it explodes. People jump out asking what happened. The guards say a truck flew in from the side and hit one of their most armored cars. It looks like they are the target. The demon steps forward, saying they should not have any chance to touch his prey. They see that it is a horned demon, a monster that is speaking high classification. The sisters get even more scared. Yanagi cannot understand why the monster appeared, and he assumes they were only focusing on humans. Yanagi lowered his guard while detecting other monsters. It was a beginner mistake. Now the situation is extremely bad. The demon asks who is going to die first. All the guards prepare to defeat it, but they are easily beaten with a single punch. The head guard almost gets crushed, but he is saved by the butler's sand ability. The demon says that is an interesting ability, and then drinks from the container he is holding. Yanagi sees him drinking and realizes this demon might be Shuten Doji, a drinking demon. It seems someone recognizes him. He is one of Japan's 3 great local demons, with overwhelming physical strength and far more than that. After he drinks, Yanagi asks what the highest level guard they have is. It is about 100,000 maybe that will be enough, but they have no choice but to step forward. Even if it is not just one enemy, Yanagi cannot see them, but he feels something nearby. It is clear that someone else is on the same level as that demon. If Yanagi leaves everyone behind to fight the demon, someone else might appear and kidnap the sisters. Yanagi wonders what he should do, because he has little experience fighting while protecting someone. Then someone approaches and asks if something is wrong. Leon has appeared. Yanagi asks who that guy is. The demon asks if they are serious red hair. That is Leon. The butler asks why that man is here. Leon says he was actually grabbing some food nearby, heard there was a fight, and decided to take a look. Yanagi wonders if that guy is famous, because Yanagi is not interested in foreigners. Leon says there are many high-ranking monsters around, especially special ones that have not arrived yet. It seems they have no choice, and nobody can cover everyone. The demon says Leon is exactly what he wanted. He says this will be a very interesting fight. Then Leon drops his skewer on the ground, saying he is done eating, and says he will play with the demon for a while. Leon steps toward the demon. With just a look, he throws a punch. The demon blocks it, but he still gets thrown backward. After recovering, the demon says that is not bad, but talking like that is just calm for him. Then the demon charges, grabs Leon by the head, and slams him into a wall, dragging cars along with the impact, and his ugly face is about to get even uglier. Leon tells him not to touch him so casually, and then counterattacks while being held underneath the demon, launching himself and nearly sending the demon flying. A massive gust of wind bursts outward in every direction. After the dust settles, the demon realizes that fighting in absolute really is something else. Leon says he actually likes that outfit, and that the demon is going to pay for it. Yanagi notices everything and asks what is going on with that guy. Leon never expected someone to be this strong, and even though the demon was holding him down easily at first, it was clear they would eventually be defeated. That is when Yanagi says they need to leave immediately. Leon will hold the demon back because they are in the way. The butler understands the situation, and the guards report that the Absolute's attack has destroyed all the cars. Right after that, the butler creates a vehicle made of sand and tells everyone to step on it. It is a very smooth and practical ability. Yanagi runs to a car, picks up the 2 sisters, and tells them they can leave now. But they ask if something is wrong, saying they cannot move their legs. Yanagi lifts both of them into his arms and carries them onto the sand vehicle, which is now moving under the butler's control. The butler says they are leaving now. Leon waves goodbye to them. Behind him, smoke appears, saying that the situation was very troublesome, and that the demon can withdraw now, because the real objective, the sisters, has already escaped. The demon says that maybe there is still no chance. Leon tells him not to forget, because things are not over yet, the party has only just begun. Then Leon activates his power, unleashing an overwhelming force around him. Armor-like arms form around his body, perfectly crafted, and now the real fight is truly about to begin. A looming presence asserts dominance, warning the human to recognize their place. In response, resolve hardens. Power surges outward, igniting the surroundings as a decisive move is made, signaling the true beginning of the confrontation. The creature's expression twists into fury as it bares its fangs, issuing a warning filled with arrogance. A manic laugh follows, echoing as its body surges with violent energy. Without hesitation, it lunges forward, unleashing a brutal charge, determined to crush anything that dares challenge it. The beast charges with full force, but the human vanishes and reappears instantly, striking before it can react. The strike slips past unnoticed, bypassing the creature's defenses. Confusion sets in as the human reappears behind, calmly preparing the next decisive blow. The attack passes through a blind spot, catching the creature off guard. Before it can react, the human shifts behind it and readies another strike. The follow-up strike lands cleanly, blasting the creature away. It's sent skidding across the ground, struggling to regain balance after the sudden impact. The creature reels, its arm numb from the blows, realizing the attacks far exceed their earlier strength. As it struggles to understand, the human stands at a distance, confirming the truth behind the rumors. The human reveals his ability, explaining it evolves during battle and sharply boosts his power. He also possesses foresight, allowing him to see a few seconds ahead and predict his opponent's moves. He compares his power to the creature's, then mentions a final ability but chooses not to use it. The creature reacts with disbelief at the implied gap in strength. He claims that using his full power could destroy the entire island. The creature doubts it, but the tension suggests he may be telling the truth. They realize he's one of the Absolute, a group of monsters like him. As time passes, his power keeps growing, making the situation increasingly dangerous. A crushing pressure spreads across the battlefield, freezing the creature in place. Struggling to move, it can barely remain standing under the overwhelming force. He closes in effortlessly, mocking the creature as it struggles. With confidence, he asserts its defeat is inevitable while his power continues to rise. He unleashes a twin strike that tears through the creature, overwhelming its senses. Blinded and shattered, it's left unable to react. He continues the assault at blinding speed, landing successive blows before the creature can follow his movements. Each hit drives it farther back, completely overwhelming it. The barrage ends in a massive blast, tearing through the surroundings. Despite the damage, the creature endures, earning a brief acknowledgement for its toughness. He brushes off the fight as effortless, but the creature suddenly counters, charging back in before he can react. The enemies escape using a mist-like ability. He notices but chooses not to pursue, seeing no reason to continue the fight. He reflects on the opponent's hidden fighting spirit, recognizing there was more to him than it first seemed. Confident in the future, he assumes things will unfold as long as that presence remains. Curious about how a true battle between them would turn out, he walks away, certain their paths will cross again. Unaware of what lay ahead, he leaves with quiet confidence. The scene shifts to the Takamiya family shelter, a fortified building standing safely within the city. A group arrives at the entrance, clearly worn from the journey. One helps a girl down as she regains her footing, while others approach with visible relief, glad to have finally made it to safety. Inside the shelter, relief replaces tension. A girl smiles brightly as she thanks her rescuer, clutching her belongings, while others nearby share the same gratitude. The group gathers around, expressing sincere thanks, acknowledging that their safe arrival was only possible because of him. The group reflects on how they survived, crediting the presence of someone powerful behind the scenes. As the battle noises fade, they wonder if the demon was truly defeated. With uncertainty still lingering, they are guided inside the shelter toward a secure area. As they prepare to head inside, one of them senses something unusual nearby and asks to investigate. After a brief pause, permission is given, with the reassurance that the others should now be safe, though concern remains as he heads out alone. Moving through the city, he can't shake the uneasy feeling that things went too smoothly. He considers the possibility that the enemies may have already infiltrated the facility, hoping it's just paranoia. As he scans the area, a sudden disturbance in the distance catches his attention, confirming that something is wrong. A sudden impact shakes the area as a massive object crashes down nearby, scattering debris. Caught off guard, he turns toward the source, realizing the disturbance he sensed has just revealed itself. He realizes the disturbance isn't isolated, similar objects are falling from multiple directions. As he looks out over the city, a massive structure descends, looming over everything and signaling a far greater threat. He quickly realizes the massive structure has formed a barrier around the city. Tracing it, he identifies its center and understands the trap too late. Reacting instantly, he rushes toward it, cursing as the situation becomes clear they've been completely sealed in. Inside the facility's control room, the group is guided to what is described as the most secure area. The staff reassures them that defensive barriers have been activated around the perimeter, giving a sense of safety. As the tension begins to ease, a sudden call interrupts the moment, drawing attention to something unexpected. While moving across the city, he urgently contacts the shelter, warning that a barrier has sealed the entire area and they're trapped inside. In the control room, confusion spreads as the call is received, the situation contradicting their belief that the defenses were protecting them. Realizing the danger, he orders them to stay inside and not leave, rushing back as the crisis unfolds. A loud alarm suddenly echoes through the control room, startling everyone. It's identified as the emergency siren, signaling that a monster has appeared in the city. Tension rises as the staff quickly prepare to assess the situation, bringing up a live feed to reveal what's happening outside. The live feed reveals the truth. The creature is still alive, now accompanied by others. Realizing they were deceived, the group understands the threat was never truly defeated and has only grown more dangerous. The broadcast reveals two new figures behind the attack, calmly addressing those inside. Realization spreads that the barrier was their doing all along, turning the supposed protection into a trap. As panic rises, they understand the enemy is already moving closer, and staying inside may no longer guarantee safety. The enemies advance through the streets, sending civilians fleeing in panic. The creature deliberately targets them, making sure its threat is seen. Then it issues a demand: lower the barriers and hand over the girl, or the slaughter will continue. The threat escalates as a hostage is taken, and a brutal warning is delivered: everyone will be killed if their demands aren't met. Watching from inside, the group realizes the enemy knows too much about the facility. Suspicion quickly turns inward, as they begin to fear a traitor among them. The girl trembles, blaming herself and her ability for putting everyone in danger. Overcome with fear, she clutches her belongings as tears form. Another steps in, pulling her close and firmly reassuring her that none of this is her fault, trying to calm her as the weight of the situation sinks in. He watches the scene unfold, anger rising as he sees the girl suffering and blaming herself. Realizing her ability is the reason she's being targeted, his expression hardens, his frustration turning into resolve as he clenches his fist. Unable to ignore it any longer, he bolts for the exit despite being called back. Without hesitation, he leaps outside and rushes across the rooftops, driven to confront the threat himself. Racing across the rooftops, he spots explosions erupting across the city. Urgency sets in as he pushes himself faster, silently hoping he can reach the scene before it's too late. As civilians flee in panic, confusion spreads over the monster's whereabouts. An urgent announcement cuts through the chaos, confirming multiple high-level threats have appeared and ordering immediate evacuation, escalating the danger across the city. Panic spreads through the city as multiple high-level monsters appear at once, an unheard-of situation. While others fear the worst, he focuses, spotting the source of destruction in the distance. Without hesitation, he dashes toward it, ready to confront the threat. The creature rampages through the streets, sending civilians flying as chaos spreads. Grabbing attention, it calls out to the girl, threatening to slaughter everyone if she doesn't come out. Fear takes hold as innocent lives are used as leverage. The streets descend into chaos as the creature tears through buildings and crowds, sending civilians crashing to the ground as they try to flee. With no resistance in sight, it deliberately targets the helpless, forcing panic to spread. Then, with a cruel grin, it calls out for the girl, threatening to continue the massacre if she doesn't reveal herself. The creature corners a child, mocking him while claiming he did nothing wrong. Twisting the blame, it points toward the Takamiya family before moving in to strike, ignoring the desperate plea to stop. He steps forward, ordering the civilians to run while he holds the enemy back. Facing the creature directly, he's recognized as the one responsible for the barrier. Despite the threat, he refuses to move, declaring he won't allow it to pass or harm anyone further as the others flee behind him. The enemies gather before him, unfazed, as the command to kill is given without hesitation. Surrounded and outmatched, he calmly acknowledges the reality he stands no chance, yet remains in place to face them. Despite knowing he can't win, he resolves to act. Thinking of the girl and the lives at risk, he gathers his power, determined to hold the enemies back and buy as much time as possible, even if it costs him everything. He unleashes a powerful attack, sending waves of force toward the enemies to slow them down. The female figure advances through it unfazed, while the cloaked one calmly speaks, revealing a counter as the assault fails to stop them. His attack detonates against the surroundings, but the strike veers off at the last moment, missing its target. Confused, he realizes something altered its path just before impact. The cloaked figure remains calm, having quietly activated an ability that subtly redirected the attack, revealing their control over the battlefield. Noticing debris and steel beams floating unnaturally, he realizes the enemy is using a manipulation ability. Before he can react, the control intensifies, triggering a sudden, overwhelming attack that catches him off guard. The enemy forms massive weapons from the debris, shaping them mid-air before launching them with force. Realizing the threat, he braces and tries to defend, but the sudden attack overwhelms him as the strike comes crashing down. The massive weapon crashes down with explosive force, tearing through the area. He's blown back by the impact as shockwaves ripple outward, leaving destruction in its wake. He barely survives the impact, left standing with a shattered arm and the realization of how close he came to death. As he steadies himself amid the debris, the enemy mocks him, questioning whether he understands the limits of his own strength. The creature mocks him, dismissing his stand as pointless and foolish. Injured but still defiant, he braces himself to continue. In the distance, another presence suddenly appears, drawing his attention and hinting that help may have arrived. The group rushes outside, calling out in alarm as they spot him near the shelter. Realizing he's been pushed all the way back to their location, tension spikes. The enemy notices their arrival immediately, shifting its focus toward them, while he desperately warns them to stay away. The creature lunges in for the killing blow, threatening the others next as the girl cries out in panic. With no strength left to resist, he faces the attack, wondering if this is the end, his thoughts drifting to the people he wanted to protect one last time. Just before the strike lands, a sudden blow crashes into the creature, sending it flying across the ground. The attack is completely interrupted, leaving him stunned as he looks up, realizing someone else has stepped in. A new figure arrives just in time, effortlessly knocking the creature aside and halting the attack. Calm and composed, he apologizes for being late and takes control of the situation. With quiet confidence, he steps forward and reveals his identity, signaling a turning point in the battle. He moves instantly, unleashing a precise strike that blasts the cloaked enemy away in a single motion. The impact is overwhelming, leaving the others stunned as they witness the sheer gap in power. A crest appears, marking his affiliation as a member of a special unit. Standing firm, he formally declares the start of the enemy's extermination, his presence alone shifting the momentum of the battle. The group watches in shock as the Special Countermeasures Unit makes its presence known. Recognition spreads quickly among them, realizing who has arrived. As the battlefield shifts, he steps forward with confidence, apologizing for the secrecy while taking control of the situation. He tells him to fall back and stay behind the barrier while he handles the enemies, promising an explanation later. Injured but steady, the other begins to report what he knows about the new monster's abilities. As they speak, the enemies regroup, recognizing the arrival of a specialized unit and preparing to face this new threat. The enemies briefly argue over who will face him, but the woman steps forward, claiming the fight and declaring she'll end it in a single strike. The creature backs off, focusing on recovering from its wounds. As she advances, the tension sharpens, and he stands ready, acknowledged and prepared for the coming clash. As she begins her attack, particles gather in her hand, forming something weapon-like. He studies it closely, realizing it isn't simple sand manipulation, but something more complex. Just as the pattern starts to make sense, a sudden realization hits him, hinting he's uncovered the key behind her ability. A massive construct takes shape above her metal plates, coils, and a central sphere locking into place. In an instant, the structure completes. A colossal railgun, humming with energy. He stares in shock, realizing the truth. This isn't simple manipulation. She can create complex weapons, not just control materials. The scale of it hits him immediately. This isn't a normal attack. It's something capable of overwhelming destruction. She fires the railgun, unleashing a devastating blast. The impact tears through the area, forcing even the monster back. Amid the chaos, the hooded figure calmly speaks, 50. He dashes forward through the blast, narrowly slipping past the attack. The shockwave grazes him, but he pushes through, closing the distance in a single burst of speed. The explosion devastates the surroundings, tearing through the street. He rushes ahead despite the destruction, realizing the overwhelming power and confirming his suspicion about the attack. The truth becomes clear. She creates weapons by manipulating iron sand through magnetic fields. While her ability is understood, the cloaked figure remains unreadable. Facing all three enemies, he steadies himself, preparing for what comes next. Bystanders consider helping but hesitate, realizing the danger. They conclude he's buying time for reinforcements, doubting anyone could face multiple enemies alone while he remains standing against them. The enemies acknowledge his dodge but dismiss his chances, confident in their victory. As they stand united, he calmly challenges their assumption, refusing to concede. The beast lunges forward, declaring it can kill him, mocking his confidence. Unshaken, he meets the threat head-on, calling out the arrogance in their eyes, the belief that they've already won. As the attack closes in, he remains composed, asserting his dominance and warning them to know their place. As the attack erupts around him, he remains unfazed, calmly invoking his technique, Take Mikazuchi. Energy surges outward, overwhelming the battlefield. In the distance, the onlookers brace themselves, sensing the sudden shift as his power takes control of the fight. A sword manifests amid swirling energy, embedding itself into the ground. He grips it, and a surge of power erupts outward, distorting the air. The enemies recoil, sensing the overwhelming aura now dominating the battlefield. A towering presence manifests behind him, its aura intertwining with his own as he stands with the blade in hand. The atmosphere grows heavy, charged with overwhelming power. The monster scoffs, dismissing the change, unaware that the balance of the fight has already shifted. He closes the distance in an instant, striking with precision as the phantom behind him mirrors the attack. The blow lands with overwhelming force, and he declares judgment, his power no longer restrained, now turned fully against them.